Hi guys, I'm Ojer, and in today's video, we're going to be doing some best of one ranked ladder games with a Boros Aggro deck that I've been working on and kind of tweaking over the last couple days. So if you're not familiar with the kind of Boros Aggro / Mobilize deck, this has kind of been showing up on ladder recently, and it typically features lots of value creatures like Howlsquad Heavy, and then a lot of effects that kind of ping the opponent, like Shocking Sharpshooter and Warleader's Call. And then some versions of it run like Raphael, who I think is just a worse version of Shocking Sharpshooter, but certainly you can run it if you want. And then the payoff is Ojer Axonil Deepest Might. So every time you ping the opponent or do non-combat damage, it does damage equal to his power instead. So if you have a Warleader's Call in play, it's going to do an extra 5 damage, or a total of 5 damage, or 4 damage if you just have like a Sharpshooter in play. And then some of the removal suite we've got, full play set of Burst Lightning and a full play set of Sheltered by Ghosts, just because the mana base in this deck is very, very kind of pain heavy. You do want to try to recoup that life, and Sheltered by Ghosts is one of the best ways to do it. A couple changes that I've made to kind of the more standardized version of this deck. I've included a full playset of Searslicer Goblin, which I really like. It's a really nice value creature against control, and if you have like a 1-drop that attacks, then you can, pretty reliably get a free extra 1/1 Goblin out of it. It's also a nice generator of tokens, which can then help out with the Shocking Sharpshooter, Warleader's Call, and potentially Ojer Axonil. For the 1-drops, we have the full playset of Stadium Headliner, and then instead of running the 1/1 Goblin that can sack and throw itself, I've instead decided to run Hired Claw, just because it's a better value creature overall, and it still pings the opponent, so you can still get activations from Ojer Axonil just by attacking with the Hired Claw. And this is a nice creature that you kind of grow over time. So that's pretty much the deck. The kind of 1-2-3 punch of going like Headliner into Voice of Victory into Warleader's Call, it does some pretty absurd amounts of damage. And then, other versions of this deck, you could run copies of either like Torch the Tower or possibly Seam Rip, and I've opted against it just because they are kind of narrow, and I want to have sort of more bodies in the deck just to help kind of get the Sharpshooter and the Warleader's Call really going. So I've opted for Burst Lightning, which can in the long game do 4 damage versus just a 2 at the beginning, and Sheltered by Ghost, just to be able to deal with almost any target, hopefully. For the mana base, we have 22 land. Average mana cost is 2.0, and I've included all the pain lands just to have the absolute best access to the right kind of mana when you need it. So on turn 1, you have access to 19 sources of red and 16 sources of white. And then you've got 3 copies of Dalkovan Encampment to kind of give you some additional utility and help provide a threat against control decks. So that's the deck. Let's go ahead and jump in. I think currently we're sitting around top 1,000 Mythic. So it's there's a long way to go before the end of the season, but I really have been enjoying this deck a lot. I think Boros, Mono Red, Mono White, they're kind of my favorite sort of types of decks, just sort of more aggressive, and there's a lot of different ways you could build this deck. You could also run it with like Frontline Rush, which is a nice way to sort of pump your creatures and give you some extra tokens. You could also run like Neighborhood Guardian to kind of pump your guys. So a lot of different ways you can do it. And I've opted for the Ojer Axonil package, but one other consideration is Suki, Courageous Rescuer, which is really, really powerful, and I'm considering putting into this deck as well. All right, so you want to try to lead out with basically all of your starting towns and Inspiring Vantages early, even if you're taking pain, just because you do have 8 copies in total, so 4 of each. And just in case you need that 4th land in play, it's better to try to kind of do that a little bit later. Typically, you want to lead out with Voice of Victory as your premier 2-drop. If you can go into like a turn 3 Warleader's Call, it's kind of just you're really doing it. So Searslicer Goblin is also great. So if you don't have the Voice of Victory, this is a really nice 2-drop you can play instead. You know, or potentially your Shocking Sharpshooter if you have that. I think I'd probably go like Voice of Victory, then Searslicer, then Shocking Sharpshooter. You know, unless you know you have like Ojer Axonil coming or something like that. All right, looks like we're up against just like red-black burn. All right, let's just throw down some creatures. Hopefully there's no like Pyroclasm or something like that. But yeah, you can just create an insane board presence really, really early on. And then with like the Searslicer going to town and all the extra tokens, you just get a really big board presence really fast. Yeah, like our opponent is already at 13 on turn 3. And if we were to play like a Warleader's off the top, I mean, it'd be really powerful. And I think we're just racing here. They could potentially burn us out, but we could use some of these tokens to block. So we could make the trade, but yeah. And then Howlsquad Heavy is a nice one that's also really doing it. I think instead we can just do the Searslicer plus Burst Lightning, but yeah, they're both just really great creatures. Yeah, now we're just really doing it. So this is probably lights out unless they've got a board sweep. All right, on to the next. I also like the reach that you get on this deck, which is really nice against control. So between like the Warleader's calls and the Shocking Sharpshooters, you can sneak out some extra damage, possibly even like a Burst Lightning late game to get the last couple points in. And from like the control side of the table, seeing the Dalkovan Encampments is very threatening. Even though we don't have very many haste creatures in the deck, it just represents a lot of potential damage that they have trouble dealing with. In terms of which kind of hands you want to keep, you'll pretty much keep any hand with 2 lands, or 3 or 4, something like that. Okay, that works. Sure. Sorry for the mana screw that they were dealing with there potentially, but yeah. Yeah, so basically you want to try to throw back 1-landers, and that's kind of about it. I suppose there's some, you know, potential outlier hands where you'd have like all 3 and 4 drops and nothing on 1 and 2. You probably want to have something that you can do on 1 and 2, 1 or 2. So I suppose if you have like all 3 drops plus, maybe you ship that hand. All right, opening hand looks good. We're not always going to have a 1-drop, but you know, with 12 options between the Lizard, the Stadium Headliner, and the Burst Lightning, hopefully you get something like that going on. Yeah, and you pretty much always want to choose red mana or mountain for Multiversal Passage. just because you've got the Dalkovan Encampments, which require mountains to come in untapped. All right, we'll get Voice of Victory going. And again, yeah, this is your premier 2-drops. You want to be leading out with this when possible. And then if you don't have this, there's some situations where you do the Shocking Sharpshooter, but hopefully you can get like a Searslicer Goblin on 2 after attacking on turn 1. Don't know really what's going on here. I think we definitely value our creature more, so I'm just not going to block. Not sure what's happening. Open mana. Haven't seen the Cat Tribal deck for a little while. So yeah, probably just Sheltered by Ghosts here. We could also set up for Sharpshooter into Ojer Axonil. I kind of like that too. Like, I'm not so worried about pushing. They will be getting more tokens out of this is the only thing. But I mean, getting Ojer with Sharpshooter is pretty great. Maybe next turn we just go like Searslicer plus Sharpshooter, and then kind of do this on the turn after that. I suppose we could do that too. The other consideration is like if they have their own Sheltered by Ghost, you want to try to hold the last one. So maybe it would have been better to go for the Sharpshooter play there. But yeah, I could see it either way. Warleader's Call is a nice one. If we want to keep pushing, we could go for the Warleader's Call. And then that would also set up for a 5-point hit with Ojer Axonil the next turn, plus we could be attacking. So otherwise we can go like Shocking Sharpshooter plus Searslicer. I think actually I kind of like the Warleader's Call here. I know it's not as mana efficient, but we are gaining life. And I suppose they'll be gaining life too. So there is that. But this is a really nice lead-in to the Ojer Axonil. I guess we could sit back with this too. I mean, we hit them for 2. We can block decently well. We're hitting them for, I guess, 6 points here, but they're gaining 3 back. Maybe we sit. Yeah, if they have Sheltered by Ghosts here, it's going to be pretty rough. Okay. Oh man, yeah, definitely kicking myself for not waiting on the Sheltered by Ghosts. So yeah, going back, I think it would have been better to kind of hold it for later. And now we're definitely just getting punished. Yeah, and that's not going to be enough to do it there. So yeah, try to hold on to the Shelter by Ghost. I should take my own advice. Haven't seen a Cat's Tribal deck in quite a while, though. Opening hand looks great. And then between Hired Claw and Stadium Headliner, you typically want to lead out with Hired Claw as the priority. Headliner you can always play on 3 and then just use its ability if you need to. Stormcatch Mentor. Oh wow, that's pretty good. So I don't know if we want to just go for the Voice of Victory here. I mean, this does give them like nice discounts, can push a little bit of damage. I think I'm still going to go for Voice here, just to get something on the table. Might be wrong. All right, now we can just set up with Searslicer plus Burst Lightning. Could also do another Voice if we think we might draw like into Warleader's Call, something like that. But I think Searslicer is nice, so we can get the for sure extra token. We've already got a Voice in play. Yeah, and Voice is just so good, like turning off their ability to cast spells on our turn. I think we're still just racing and we don't want to sack the token quite yet. I think depending on how this turn goes, we might want to hold this one back for blocking afterwards. Yeah, they're really making these things work though. So I think at this point we're probably holding back with the Goblin token. Ooh, Crab is really good here. Could definitely use a Warleader's Call off the top. Sharpshooter is pretty good too. Question is, do we suicide the Voice of Victory in? I guess if we do, we're already doing 6. Yeah, then never mind. They're just dead because we're doing 6 damage just off the tokens entering. So that should do it. Yeah, Sharpshooter was a nice pickup there. Yeah, that's going to do it. I think Warleader's Call does so much work on this deck. Like the double duty it does with Voice of Victory and the Stadium Headliner is just amazing. Like the voice goes from doing 3 damage to 8 damage. Okay, up against Reanimator. See how... And they got a really nice hit there, so we're going to have to race him. So this is going to be close. Maybe. Since we don't have any graveyard hate, we basically just need to be faster than them. Sometimes you can get into a situation where you can go like turn 3 Warleader's Call, and then like you'll lose everything when they bring back the bringer, but you have like a creature or 2 in the yard, and it comes in and just the pinging damage from the Warleader's Call is enough to finish it. Those are some really nice close games when it happens. All right, well, if they've got it in hand, we're kind of sunk, unfortunately. But we'll get Sharpshooter going here, and then just kind of hope we get there. If they want to kill off the Hired Claw, happy to accept that. Definitely saving Burst Lightning for face. Getting a couple creatures in the yard again is nice if we can get the Warleader's Call going. All right, so it looks like they've got it. We're not going to block here. We don't have to give them an extra greeter. I suppose what we could have done, we could have like Burst Lightning our own Sharpshooter after the block, but that's, I think, maybe a little much. So if we get a land here, we can double Sheltered by Ghosts and maybe stay in it. Fairly unlikely. I suppose we save this potentially to do 4 if we need to. Okay, there's the land. All right, we'll take their Overlord. So what can they get back? They can get back another Overlord. It's certainly not looking good, but probably just go Overlord, maybe Steam Core. Okay, now they got another Bringer plus the Terror of the Peaks. So that's probably going to be lights out right there. Can hit us for a bunch. Assuming they pick the right target. Suppose we could have attacked, but then they just get everything back anyways. And that's gonna be lights out. So yeah, Reanimator is still tough. If we're on the play and we get decent hand, we can sometimes speed them out. But it's such I don't think that running main deck Graveyard Hate is the answer with this kind of deck. So ended up going 3 and 2. Let's take a look at the stats for the deck. All right, overall the win rate is 60% on ladder, 79% on the play, and 38% on the draw. So yeah, you're doing way better if you're if you're on the play, unsurprisingly. 21 wins and 14 losses. So I've definitely played more matches with this deck, but not all of them have been on the computer. Some have just been on my tablet. But overall, yeah, I really like how the deck is performing. And the matchups, you have kind of a tough matchup here with Orzhov Pixie. They can just get all your stuff pretty easily. So that is... Orzhov Skeletons is a little better, but depending on which Orzhov deck you're facing. And then Mono Green's pretty decent. You've got 3 and 1 there. Mono White is also a little bit in the net positive. Dimir is a little tough just because they have so much removal and board wipes, depending on, again, what version, if it's Dimir like mid-range or if it's Dimir Excruciator. Doing great against the Mirror and doing decent here against, this is like kind of the 4-color control deck. And then about 50-50 with mono red. Sultai Reanimator, again, is a tough match, depending on if they get that fast start with a Bringer in the Yard on turn 2. Gruul and Azorius is okay, and then this is just kind of, you just need to do more games to get sort of suss it out. But yeah, overall 60%, feeling pretty good about it. And if you like this kind of deck, maybe check it out.